So good. Well, it's afternoon. It's 12 o'clock. So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our third webinar. This webinar is going to be over cyber security. And we're fortunate enough to have Derek Hedrick with Ameritech to present for us today. A couple of housekeeping things. If you've participated in the last couple of webinars, then you know Derek will be taking questions throughout the presentation. If you have a question, you can use the Q&A section of Zoom, or you can raise your hand and we will, I will unmute you and allow you to speak live. And there's also a chat function, but preferably the Q&A or raise your hand and I will unmute you.
Will I see the Q&A? I remember seeing the chat yesterday, but I don't remember seeing a Q&A. Does that pop up for me as well, or you just will ask a question?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll try it and see. I'm a Teams guy. I'm a Microsoft guy, so I don't know that much about Zoom.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You should have a Q&A option, but okay. I'm not sure. The next thing is, again, in an effort to uphold the integrity of the CECs issued by MEBB, participants will be required to respond to various questions that will appear throughout the course of the webinar. Questions will randomly display on the screen and participants will need to submit their response while the question is still visible. Responses will be verified for accuracy. And you'll have anywhere from 45 to 60 seconds to respond to the question. At this time, I would like to introduce our presenter, Derek Hedrick. He's the president of Ameritech Data Solutions. He spent 6 years in the United States Navy as a nuclear health physics technician on board the USS Bluefish SSM 675. Derek then spent the next 10 years in the environmental science industry, including automated reporting applications for commercial laboratories, as well as maintaining intranet and internet security protocols. In 1999, while independently working for small businesses in Eastern North Carolina, Derek was introduced to the sheet metal and tab industries. Derek has worked with sheet metal and tab companies across the United States to develop streamlined project management products to support their industry. At the same time, Derek provided a complete line of network security products and services through his computer consulting division. In addition to the test and balance industry, Derek has developed automated software for wastewater treatment facilities, law office operations, property management, cemetery management, accounting, industrial production, and industrial inventory control. So Derek, welcome. Thank you again for being with us today and agreeing to present on this very important topic of cyber crime and security. I will turn it over to you now.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to take and provide this information to you guys. So cybersecurity is a huge issue right now, especially during the pandemic with more and more people working remotely. It prevents or it expands the reach of cyber criminals to be able to take and have access to you. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to take and have a presentation on cybercrime and cybersecurity. So this is the first in a series of webinars and presentations that Ameritech has done to educate small businesses to take and help them learn what is cybercrime and some of the methods that they can use to combat against it. So today we're going to focus on part one of the series. That's going to be cybercrime, what it is, and how does it affect my business. This is my bio. If you want a copy of it, please email me. I'll be more than glad to send you a copy of it. So Ameritech has 4 great brands that we use to take and support the tab industry. So Ameritech Data Solutions is our division that is used to take and create our custom applications. TabOps is our signature flagship product for the tab industry. It comprises 2 primary softwares, our TabOps Project Management. It's used to manage your operations, and then TabOps Reporting 2020, which is our field data collection and reporting software. We also provide a website for timekeeping, and then Ameritech Computer Consultants. That is our actual IT support division that we created to be able to assist tab companies with their IT needs, since most tab companies don't have a dedicated IT person. All right, with that being said, cybercrime now accounts for more than 50% of all crime in the U.S., surpassing physical theft, which up until 2017 was the most common type of fraud against corporations for over a decade. That includes pencils, paper clips, staplers, ink pens, and oh yeah, by the way, you test and balance guys, ladders. So malicious hackers are now attacking computers and networks at a rate of one attack every 39 seconds. So every 39 seconds, there's at least one attack being presented trying to take and get information. 78% of surveyed organizations were affected by cybersecurity attacks in 2018, costing each of those corporations anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million to recover for each cyber attack. So a single attack on a single company could net an actual cyber criminal $100,000 to $1 million, depending on what the type of attack is. Microsoft Cloud Services, that's your Microsoft 365, such as your Outlook, your Excel, and your Word. Those Microsoft Cloud Services are seeing 300 million fraudulent sign-in attempts every single day. Basically, there's automated programs out there that are just using random generated, letters and number combinations to try to figure out a combination of a username and password to hack into people's accounts. So 300 million of those every single day. Now, that is one of the primary reasons that Microsoft has now mandated MFA, commonly referred to as multi-factor authentication, on their Microsoft products. If you're not familiar with MFA or not familiar with two-factor authentication, you're going to be. Microsoft has mandated that all of their cloud service products abide by the actual MFA protocols. What is cybercrime and how does it affect me and my company? I hear this question a lot. It means different things to different people, really kind of depending on who you ask and what the frame of reference of the conversation is. But in order to try to take and simplify it, I have gathered some basic definitions to try to help clarify that. So, definition by Google. Google says that cybercrime is criminal activity carried out by means of a computer or the internet. Okay, makes sense? The U.S. government says it's an activity other than one authorized by or in accordance with U.S. law that seeks to compromise or impair the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of computers, information or communication systems, networks, physical or virtual infrastructure controlled by computers or information systems or the information resident thereon. So Google, 11 words to explain it. The U.S. government, 46 words to explain it. So that is our government dollars at work. They get paid by the word.
Hey, Derek, can I pause you for just a moment?
Yeah, sure. I want to vote. It won't let me.
Oh, well, I will have to click where panelists have the ability to
I don't need to vote. I know the answer. Good. Every time you ask a question, I'll get to drink coffee. I like it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. A Techopedia reference, which is one of the popular references for technology people to review, says it's a crime in which computer is the object of the crime, hacking, phishing, or spamming, and is used as a tool to commit an offense, such as child pornography, hate crimes, etc. And then cyber criminals may use these computer technologies to access personal information, business trade secrets, or use the internet for exploitative or malicious purposes. Criminals can also use computers for communication and document or data storage. So that's what Techopedia says. Now, I kind of sum it all up, and this is my definition. My definition of cybercrime is when cyber criminals launch cyber attacks on your business as an entity or you as an individual. So cyber attacks are typically launched to steal money, gain access to financial or sensitive data or information, weaken the integrity or disrupt the operations of your company. Attacks are often results in crimes such as financial fraud, information or identity theft, i.e. the whole collection, would be commonly called cybercrime. So that's kind of what my definition of cybercrime is. I'm going to go over some keywords. I'm not going to read the definition of all of these keywords. It takes way too much time. I am going to highlight some of the most important ones today. So on the first page, botnets. So what botnets are, it is a collection of computer systems that work together for a common goal. So let's say that your computer sends out a malware attack and another computer pulls that in. And so it says, okay, I now am a part of a network. So now I and the other computer are working together to take and present another one to another computer and so forth and so on. That is how botnets work. They collect together and then they perform a common function. This one, apparently, I think all these are very important, and I'm going to briefly cover some, and then I'm going to delve into some of the other ones. So malware, you hear this term a lot, and so malware is really kind of a category or a catch-all of a whole bunch of stuff. So it's things that you don't want to take and have on your computer. These are going to be things such as viruses and Trojans and ransomware and so forth and so on. So the term malware, whenever you hear that in society or you read that or whatever, it means just it's a category or a collection of stuff that you don't want to have. Something that's really popular right now is phishing. Phishing is an attempt to take and actually acquire sensitive information like usernames and passwords or credit card details for malicious purposes by masquerading as a trustworthy entity in a digital environment. So an example of phishing is you receive an email that your Amazon delivery has is en route. You can click on the tracking number and you can see what it is. But you know that you aren't expecting an Amazon delivery. So that would be a phishing attempt to take and try to gain information. The other thing that you want to be aware of is when you get these type of emails that they're going to look legitimate. So you need to take and be cautious about the actions that you take whenever you get one of these emails. So I'm going to drop out of here real quick, and then I'm going to show you an example of what one of those would look like. Well, apparently it's mad because I'm in a presentation. It won't let me do that. But anyway, so the actual email looks legitimate. It looks just like it came from Amazon, but yet it actually has linkage in it or control characters in it that are going to take you to a malicious site somewhere. Social engineering. Social engineering is a way for attackers to take and focus on your emotions. They are going to take and come to you as a, oh, isn't this cute? Or, oh, I trust this person. Oh, I'm scared, or you're making me nervous or whatever. So examples of this would be, you get an email from Ginger that says, hey, click on this attachment to view this item. You know Ginger, so therefore you trust Ginger. So even though it's not typically what she would send you, you go ahead and you act on that email because of the fact that you trust Ginger. The problem is that somebody has caught her email address, has captured that, and has sent something malicious onto that. So when you're looking at your email, you want to take and make sure that you're looking at it for, is this normal from this person? Should I be getting this from this person? I'll give you a prime example. I had a customer to take and call me, fairly recently and said, hey, we just got an email from a guy who's in the engineering department, and it said attached is your invoice. He is in the accounting department. He would have no reason to send us an invoice. What should we do? And I said, well, first off, you can send it to us and we'll run an analysis on it. But two is, whatever you do, don't click on that invoice. So what they've done is they have created or tried to create a trust site or a trust between you and the person because you know that person, and to try to get you to perform some action. Another thing in social engineering is you receive an alert on your computer. So let's say, for example, you're working on your computer and you get a little pop-up message or whatever it says, Microsoft has detected a virus on your computer, and we want to take and get rid of this for you. Click on this link and we'll do that. You don't want to do that because that is not typically how that is going to occur. Typically, you're going to have a software that is going to be protecting your system, or you're going to have some other means of protecting the information. And so by having that pop up there and you click on that link, what that does is gives access to the hacker to be able to gather information off of your computer or to install additional malwares on your computer. Another thing that we've seen recently is we had someone call in and said, hey, I've got this suspicious email, and it was we have issued a warrant for your arrest. Click on the actual warrant details to see what they are, and then surrender to your local blah, 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 blah. And so when the guy called me and he said, hey, I got an email that they've issued a warrant for my arrest. And I said, what do? You need a place to hide? And he said, no, I don't need a place to hide. He said, but I don't know what to do. And I said, well, first off, don't click on the actual link in the actual email for the details. I said, more than likely it's a scam. Pack it up, send it to me. We'll look at it, and then we'll let you know. So social engineering is they're using your emotions to get you to react. Those can be either positive emotions, hey, I know this person, I'll do this for them, or negative emotions, oh my God, I can't believe that this is happening to me, or whatever. So social engineering, you need to be particularly careful of when you're taking and looking at information, because of the fact that those are the tricky ones. Now, spear phishing. Spear phishing is fairly new, but it is sophisticated. So what spear phishing does is they are putting a site on a specific target. So let's say you're the target. What they'll do is they'll take and they will find as much information about an email contact or a contact entity that they can. So when you talk about today's society, you've got Facebook, you've got LinkedIn, you've got Twitter, you've got email customers, you've got websites. All of those things could have bits of information about you. And so being able to gather that information together and to take and target a person is what the purpose of spear phishing is. So I had a customer to email me 2 weeks ago and said, I just got a very disturbing phone call from one of our directors at one of our schools. So what this customer does is they actually administer examinations to students, and they do that by proctoring with the actual school, and they send a contact at the school the examinations, and then they disseminate that to the students, and the students take it, and then they come back and grade it and give them a score and a certificate. So the contact at the school had emailed my customer and said, hey, I just got this email from you that said blah, 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 and I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. We weren't scheduling an examination. And so my customer panicked and emailed me and said, I didn't send that email. You know, what happened and how did that happen? So we started looking at it, and one of the things we noticed is it used her old email address. We've just recently moved her all over to one new domain, and this email that was sent to her was using an old email address. It was also directed to one of her contacts in her sphere of people that she would normally communicate with. And it also had information that would have been appropriate for that type of connection. So after our research, what we found is that all the information that was needed to compose that email was actually in their website. And so what happened is this bot, basically, this computer program, it went in and it took and basically assembled a scenario from inside the website and then generated this email and sent it out on their behalf. And so when the end user got it, had they not been paying attention to it or had they not thought about it, they would have acted on it because it looked legitimate. So let me give you a rough idea on how easy that is to achieve. So this right here is the Mid-South Environmental Balancing Bureau website, and I'm just going to use you guys as an example. Your website is as safe as anybody else's website, so don't take what I'm going to show you to mean, oh my God. So, but this right here happens to be the board of directors, and this is what you see on your side. So you're going to have names and titles and address and company names and phone numbers, and click here to email and so forth and so on. This is what you see. So if I go here and I go down here and I say, show me what hackers see, this is what hackers see. So they see the code behind the page. So they have automation programs that are just scouring the web, and they're finding websites, and they're coming in and they're looking for things that they can exploit inside of here. So I have went ahead and I have extracted this information in here. And so if I take and say, let me go find email addresses. So all I got to do is find @ symbols. I can then take and actually come in here and pull this information out. And now I have this person's email address. I can then look in here and I can get phone numbers out of here. I can get titles out of here. I can get the name of their corporation out of here. I can then build a signature line. I can build a subject matter. I can build whatever I want to, and then just send that out to people. And then they are more likely to respond to those things because it has relevant information. It came from this site. So they would use the information on the header site to say, okay, this is about this organization. And they try to get you to do things from that information. So spear phishing is a targeted technology that is utilized to take and actually get you to perform a function at that point in time. I'm not
Jared,
using
can I pause you right there, please?
Yeah, absolutely. That'll give me a chance to catch up to where I need to be. Yeah, they don't know the answer to that question yet.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry. I thought you were in order.
Yeah, they are in order, but I hadn't got to that slide yet.
Oh, well then, okay, never mind. That means you haven't gotten to 3, 4, or 5, right?
Probably.
Okay.
Because I don't think I asked you. I don't know if I'll have to pull up my questions and have them aside, but I don't remember asking any questions about definitions.
No worries. Go ahead.
All right, cool. So Trojans are a particular category of actual viruses, and so they are just things that sit dormant on your computer and interact at a certain time. So, for example, a couple of years ago, we had what was called as the love bug virus, and so it was set to activate on February the 14th. So Trojans are dormant things that sit on your computer, and you may have them on your computer right now, that have not activated yet. Something happens to activate them. 0-day vulnerability. This is important. I get asked all the time, why did my virus protection not catch that? How come I didn't get notified? And the reason being is because these hackers are working every single day to create the latest and greatest. The only way that we are able to take and combat the issue is by taking and knowing what the actual cause is. So the only way that we're able to take and fight a situation is to be exposed to that situation, and then that way we can take and actually develop a method to be able to take and actually fight against it. So 0-day vulnerability is the gap between when I know about it and when I have a cure for it. Origins of cybercrime. So this is how did it all begin. So hacking became integrated with malicious intent back in the 1970s. So whenever we started really getting into the pulse telephone and getting into the large computers, being able to do telephone communications, they would take and actually learn how those series of beeps would allow them to be able to circumvent the security on these big computer systems to allow them to do long distance phone calls. So this was particularly used like for overseas calls or intercontinental calls, but they were actually used to take and actually get that type of information. So law enforcement had a difficult time with this type of activity because they didn't have any legislation and they didn't have anybody that knew anything about it because, you know, the kids were the ones that were developing this. So this group of kids in college is the one that determined how to do this. And so they didn't have anybody that knew anything about it. So they had to take and catch up. So by the mid-1980s, cybercrime was rampant, and it was a specific channel that was able to control and destroy computer systems and to acquire information and steal millions in cash. So action was needed. So in 1986, the first cybercrime legislation was passed, the Federal Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, okay, making it harmful for computer activity to become a felony crime punishable by jail time and fines. So I don't know about you, but I know that I'm excited now that I have a law that will protect me against this. Are we all excited about that? I'm sure we are. The problem is that 96% of all cybercrime originates outside of the United States, aka outside of U.S. jurisdiction in most cases. So even though we have a law to protect us inside the borders of the United States, cybercrime is a global issue, and other countries do not have to abide by our laws. So what's our current state? So in the U.S. state of cybercrime, 3 out of 4 respondents had detected a security event during the past 12 months. I would suspect that more than 50% of the viewers watching this presentation today have had some type of event. Cybercrime is increasing at a geometric rate per day. There's roughly 900 phishing attempts per financial institution and 9,000 attempts detected per technology company. We have an actual on average of anywhere from 700 to 800 false pings directly. We have more than that on just open pings. So phishing sites are mimicking all the major technology players. You know, Google, Apple, Facebook, Yahoo, and Dropbox are all phishing targets. So these insidious phishing sites could actually dupe you guys into uploading files to cyber criminals by accident. On average, 85,000 malicious IPs are launched every day. 85,000 malicious IPs. So for you guys, midsouthebb.com, that's a word that is translated into a number. So IP addresses are how computers register information. So when you go to your browser and you type in Amazon, or you type in Google, or you type in something, there is a program that converts those words into IP addresses. So the IP address for Google is 74.125.136.99. The IP address for Mid-South EBB is 50.28.78.16. If I were to go to a browser and I were to type that number in, it would take me to your website. So IP addresses are the digital representation of the names that we use, because computers are number-based, so that it works easier for numbers to be able to get to things. So with 85,000 malicious IPs launched every day, all I have to do is get an IP address, change Mid-South, remove the actual H or something out of the name, make it look just like your website, and then send out a bunch of emails, and then 30% of the people are going to take and have an increased chance of falling for that by clicking on those actual invalid links. So, current state, cybercrime is not restricted to desktops alone. Mobile devices also have proliferated in recent years. So because of their actual open marketplace, Android, iOS platforms is home to a variety of malware in particular. So in a recent survey, 72% of all apps for any OS were regarded as suspicious, unwanted, or malicious, with Trojans making up the majority of the threats. So your phone system is not immune to the actual same threats as you get on your actual Windows desktop. It's just a different programming language, but they do the same thing. They capture keystrokes, they capture web pages, they capture information that you're doing on your phone. Now, connect your phone to your computer, and guess what? You can now take and transmit that information, that virus, that Trojan, onto your actual local computer as well, because most of those viruses are going to be written to be multi-platform. Cybercrime makes headline news. Orange County computer networks hit by ransomware attack. So the entire Orange County computer network was out of service on Monday. So basically, a whole municipality was dropped by a ransomware attack. So the next group of slides are going to talk about ransomware attacks in particular. And so I've added some that are actually current to today as well. So this right here, the Orange County hit by the ransomware attack, it was determined that an office worker clicked on an email for a free offer, something like an Applebee's. You click here, you get a $10 Applebee's gift card or something to that effect. It was that type of not paying attention that actually caused the whole network to go down.
Hey, Derek, I'm going to pause you for a moment to launch this poll, and then we also have a question. Are iPhones resistant to cyber attacks? I have always heard that iPhones cannot get viruses. What about MacBooks?
The answer to that question is nothing is prone, nothing is protected from the potential to get it. So the iOS software is much more regulated and much more or much less prone to that, but is not completely prevented from being able to get it. So even though it is, so comparatively, Windows has an 80% chance of getting one of those. And when you're talking about Macs and iOS, you're probably looking at about 20%. So the iOS software, they actually go through a quality control unit. So when you write a piece of software for iOS, you have to submit it to Apple and they have to review it ahead of time. So the majority of those things get stopped ahead of time, but that doesn't prevent something from getting through. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, computer malware shuts down government offices in South Carolina. So basically a whole municipality was shut down, you know, and this again was caused by a situation that I described earlier where a vendor sent in an actual information that said, hey, click on the invoice attached. They clicked on the attachment, which launched the actual Trojan, which then caused the actual shutdown of the whole municipality. Baltimore made headline news a couple of times, and it's because of the severity of the attack and the fact that they were attacked twice within a 12-month period. It is not uncommon for companies to be attacked multiple times in a short time period. The reason being is because once there is a breach, then the information that's there, it's easier to take and go, oh, this was a success, and so let's just beat it to death until we try to find something else. So Baltimore had a ransomware attack that shut down most of the city's servers. What's interesting about this one in particular is that so they requested like $78,000 in ransom or something to that effect or whatever, but it cost Baltimore $18 million to take and actually recover from that single event. Further analysis pointed a finger at the United States for the cause of the attack. And so what supposedly the scenario is that Microsoft sent out a global notification to take and update your software because it had a critical patch in there. So Baltimore's IT guys said, nope, we're going to take and leave things as they are right now, and we're going to wait. And so what happened is that after the attack launched, it was discovered that this particular attack had remnants of an NSA program that was used to try to take and fight against cybercrime for other people around the world. And so the theory is that Microsoft tried to let Baltimore know that, hey, you need to do these security updates, and Baltimore chose to ignore them. So again, I tell you, if you have security updates, or you need to take and make sure your software is up to date, because you never know what lies behind the ground. So they were warned to update their systems, and they chose not to. Again, all we know is money. City struggles to fight hacking attacks. And then ransomware attacks are testing the resolve of cities across America. This one was interesting. So this one happened in Wilmore, Texas. So basically what this was is all the computers, all the actual municipality computers were attached to a basic cloud network. And so the cloud network had a third-party software on it that was utilized to take and actually provide private communication software. So the attack happened at the supplier of the software, and because there was a direct connection to the actual computers because of how the software worked, then they were able to piggyback through that connection and then infect this whole town of Wilmar, Texas, putting out pretty much every single computer. So you not only have to take and be concerned with your own network, you also have to be concerned with what's called as prongs or ports into your network, which is why people that are working remotely now, there's such an issue with that, and people are having to take extra precautions because of it. Apparently there is a question. Have you seen attacks that look like Microsoft security updates? The true answer to that question is yes. They are few and far between, but they do exist. Again, it's one of those things where they are taking and trying to mimic things that you would trust. Now, if you go and actually look at it, the actual update doesn't fall in the update collection. It also doesn't typically take and reference the Microsoft website. So again, you need to be diligent about what you're doing when you're working on the computer. I know we're all busy. I know that it takes time to take and be vigilant, but the cost to you if you don't do that will far exceed the amount of time that you wasted on verifying the link. So typically these come in, at what I've seen in the past is they've come in through email notifications. Hey, there is a new security update. It's mandatory, blah, blah, blah. Click on this link to follow and install the update. So that's kind of those. Thanks for the question.
Hey, Derek, we have one more question.
Yep.
Referring to interacting phones with computers, are you saying that if you tether your computer to your phone while using it, as it is a hotspot, that you are creating vulnerability?
The actual real answer to that question is yes. So if you are connecting your phone to your computer, then you're opening a communication between the two devices, and technically information that is stored on the phone as a malicious fact could transfer over to your computer. It is highly unlikely that you would have something on the computer that would be written to take and go to the actual operating system on the phone. But it is possible to take and actually transmit it from the phone to the desktop. Yep.
Thank you.
So in updating our software, this is something else that I found is some of the 5 worst ransomware attacks in the United States. So Baltimore, again, it's on this list or whatever. So the city refused to pay the $76,000 ransom that was demanded. So that brings up a good question. So the question is do you pay the ransom or not? Well, here's my position. My position is I don't negotiate with terrorists. I mean, that's just my position as it is. So I don't think I would pay the ransom, period, because for us, we have backups in place and we have images in place, so we can take and technically be up and running in a fairly short time period. So if you put your protective measures in place like you should have, then you shouldn't have to waste the money on terrorists, because what's going to happen is you're feeding into their ability to continue to do this. This becomes more funding for them to be able to take and do more stuff. So recovery cost them $18.2 million. Now, part of that was, image and news releases and letting everybody know and so forth and so on. And obviously part of that was getting their systems back up and running again. Maze is, while it's not a specific event, the Maze ransom family wreaked havoc in 2019, and it continues to take in there. So this one here is an example of a ransomware where they were mimicking popular websites, and they were getting people to take and actually interact with those websites and then that was downloading information to their computer, which then caused the actual ransomware to be broadcast. Campbell County Health. I am kind of surprised that we haven't seen more of these. This is a hospital, and so a hospital, an administrator, more than likely clicked on an email or got a malicious, invoice or whatever, and it launched an actual ransomware attack on all the hospital systems. So think about when you go to the doctor now, they bring in a tablet and they type in the information. When they do prescriptions, they type in the information. So assume or imagine going into a hospital that is dead in the water, that has no ability to take and access a computer or computer information. They don't know what your prescriptions are. They don't know what your dosages are. They don't know what your history is. They don't know anything about you. So the comment here where the guy said the fact that this instance and the attack in other years did not result in the loss of life is simply a matter of luck, I 100% agree with that. So, critical systems have to really be protected from this type of thing because they could take and actually cause significant loss of life. So this right here, this was an interesting one because of the fact that this is a group that specifically is targeting large corporations because their thought is one big payday is better than a bunch of $1,000 checks. So if I get a $500,000 from one corporation to pay me back, then that's a lot better than having to take and deal with thousands and thousands of transactions. So they tend to focus directly on large corporations. And then this one here, this one is another one that with so many children having to work remotely, that this right here recently has had an effect because we had an event in North Carolina where a school district was affected, and so it knocked out all the actual remote learning period. So none of the children could take an access to take and go to school or do anything. And so this right here is another one that we really need to pay attention to. All right, cybercrime, cost of cybercrime. All right, so the cost of cybercrime is the report concluded that close to 600 billion, nearly 1% of the global GDP is lost to cybercrime every year. $600 billion. That cost includes the cost that goes to the cyber criminals, as well as the cost to take and restore information, to restore reputation. All of that goes into that cost, but $600 billion every single year. The report attributes the growth over 3 years to cyber criminals quickly adopting new technologies and the ease of cyber criminals growing as actors leverage black markets and digital currencies. So, with the way technology is and how it expands, it does give the actual guys the ability to take and have easier access to do these type of bad deeds. Cybercrime damages for corporations are predicted to take and cost upwards of $6 trillion annually by 2021. 4 months, 5 months away. So 2021 is fastly approaching, and we're talking about it is predicted to take and cost upwards of $6 trillion. It is estimated that malicious cyber activity cost the United States economy $3.7 billion in 2019 alone, with nearly 1,300 incidents reported every single day. That's 1,300 people reporting that they had an event occur to them. That's just in the U.S. alone. So the costs of cybercrime are extremely high these days. This year, we've seen a church who lost $1.75 million in a BEC scam. BE stands for Business Email Compromise. So $1.75 million in a BEC scam. Two cities in Florida paid ransoms totaling over $1 million after ransomware attacks. British Airways had to pay 183 million pounds. Though we will have to wait some time to discover what the total cost of cybercrime is in 2020, we have published figures that demonstrate that the economic damage that is caused in 2019.
Hey, Derek, I'm going to pause you for just a moment, please.
Yep.
Now they know the answer to this one.
So you tell me I didn't put them in order? I thought I put them in order.
Pretty close.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So 2019, a lucrative year for cyber criminals. So on July the 9th, the Internet Society's Online Trust Alliance, OTA, published its 2019 Cyber Incidents and Breach Report. According to the actual calculations, the worldwide economic impact of cybercrime was at least $45 billion. So one of the most shocking pieces of data is the fact that according to the OTA calculations, 95% of security breaches could have been prevented. 95%. So if you take the appropriate steps to take and protect you and your connections and your data, then you can take and actually help prevent the spread of cybercrime. So 95% can be avoided. The report also explained that the BEC scam experienced a strong growth in 2019. So the data directly from the FBI indicated that in the US alone, I guess I can get rid of this. In the US alone, there were 20,000 incidents with total losses of $1.3 billion. So that right there kind of gives you an overview of what cybercrime is, what the current state is, and what we're facing in the near future. Now, the next section that I want to talk about is why do I commit cybercrime? So why would somebody commit cybercrime? So why do you commit cybercrime? Well, number one, it's easy. It's easy to do it. Number two, it's profitable. And number three is it's hard to get caught. So we're going to talk about each one of these things. We're going to talk about the fact of how easy it actually is. And then we're going to talk about just how profitable it is. And then we're going to talk about, okay, how hard it is to get caught. So it's easy. So this little section right here, this very first piece right here, the one that says create a simple phishing program. So from that line down to the bottom of the word end with, those are two examples of short code that could cause significant damage to your system if they were executed. So for example, the first one is shell execute, delete, C, start, that would wipe everything from your actual computer. So if you were to take and click on a link that would execute that command, then it would begin deleting information off your computer until it couldn't delete anything anymore. The second piece, which is what ransomware uses, this right here is an example of code that they use in order to do that. It only takes this amount of code to take and perform an encryption of files on your system. Or you can just go buy one from the internet. Remember when I talked about earlier that, you know, people are taking and looking at the black web and stuff like that, or the dark web, some people call it. You can just go buy one of these actual ransomware programs. So you just go purchase a code, and coders are egotistical. So every coder is going to take and add a little bit of something to it to make it their own. And then they're going to take and launch that to try to get information. So it's easy. The next thing you do is you upload it to a website, or you put it in an email. So these could be legitimate websites or social media websites. So for example, like let's say you are looking for an employee, or you're looking to take and hire somebody. They'll put out fake resumes on there so that when you click on the resume, it does a drive-by download. It puts an actual piece of Trojan software on your computer that launches at some point in time later so that you can't directly connect the two. How many people go to YouTube to take and actually watch videos or get self-help guides or whatever? All I have to do is create one of those, put in the code to drop a piece of software onto your computer. You're watching how to repair your lawnmower, and I'm launching a cyber attack on your computer. Tutorials, same situation. Copies of trusted sites, Citibanks, Facebook, Pinterest. Did everybody notice that all three of those are fakes? It's Citibank, no S, Facebook has no space, and Pinterest is misspelled. Though I suspect that when you looked at them, you recognized all three. That's what happens is they utilize things that you're familiar with, and so you act before thinking. It's easy. All I have to do is send out a whole bunch of emails. So I create this stuff, put a link in and say, hey, click here to do something. And then I send that out. So phishing is as much a technical attack as it's a social engineering method. For any phishing attempt to be successful, a phishing email must pass through software filters and be acted upon by a recipient exposing sensitive data. So that's why typically they'll create a malicious website and put a benign link in the email. Most email scanners are not going to take and actually prevent you from clicking on an email, or not going to detect that that email is associated with a malicious site unless there's software in order to do that. And so then all they do is they wait for the actual recipient to take some action. So they make it sound like slim odds for success, though the Via Mail Spring 2019 Fraud Landscape Report released recently indicated that at least 3.4 billion fake emails are sent each day. 3.4 billion fake emails are sent each day. Over 30% of all phishing emails received in the United States are opened and acted upon. 30%. That is a bunch of clicking people. So the moral to this piece is pay attention, slow down, look at the information, see if it makes sense. For me, I do not typically take and click on any links or attachments in email unless I absolutely know for a fact that they're coming or I'm expecting them to come. I got a question from a customer just this week who she attached an invoice, and she said, can we talk about this invoice? And so I didn't do anything, because number one is she doesn't typically email me, and number two is the invoice wasn't in our invoice format. The number wasn't the same. And so I let it go. And then a couple of days later, she emailed me. She said, hey, I just want to check on the email that I sent you the other day about an email. And so I'm like, okay. So I picked up the phone and I called her and I said, hey, Davina, did you send me an email? She said, yeah. And she said, we took and scanned the actual invoice, and so this is our scanner number, blah, 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 which is why it doesn't match yours. And I said, okay, fine. I said, because I wasn't going to open it until I got confirmation from you that you actually did send it. So it doesn't take long to verify, but if you see something that you don't quite recognize or you don't quite expect, stop. Get verification. It's better to get verification than it is to take and pay to take and recover your systems. Wait. It's easy. I go get a piece of malicious code. I create one of those 85,000 malicious websites. I put the code up there. I generate a bunch of fake emails. I do a random generator to generate random emails, addresses, and I just send it out and I see who responds. Again, 30% of phishing emails received in the United States are acted upon. And then I sit back and wait. It's profitable. Cybercrime created over $1.5 trillion in profits in 2018 alone. $1.5 trillion in profits in 2018 alone. For an individual with the right skill set, cybercrime can be incredibly lucrative. I was giving this presentation last year, and one of the tab guys raised his hand and he said, so are you telling me that I should quit the tab business and become a cyber criminal? And I said, if you're good at it. So individual cybercrime can make upwards of $500,000 in a year simply in trafficking stolen data. $500,000 a year simply in trafficking stolen data. All right, so I've got a question out there for you guys and gals. How many people purchase gas in the same area where they live? Think about that. Where do you purchase your gas? Do you purchase it close to home because it's convenient? When you purchase gas, I suspect that the majority of you use your credit card, right? So you slide your credit card in and then you pull it out and then it asks you for your zip code, correct? That's a security measure to take and actually protect you or to help protect that transaction. So you put in your credit card, you have to verify the zip code where the actual credit card belongs to, and they go, yep, these two match, so you're authorized to spend on this card, and so you can pump gas. Sounds good, right? The problem is that 95% of the US population purchases gas in the zip code they live in. So if I have a card reader, I go stick this little device inside of that card slot. You stick your credit card in there. I read the number of it off. I go and collect the data. I know the zip code of the gas station where I got the numbers. Now I have everything that I need in order to go make fraudulent purchases on your credit card. All it takes is you buying gas at home or around your house and somebody capturing that credit card number to have access to be able to take and actually steal your identity and go buy a whole bunch of big screen TVs. So you'll think about that the next time you're sticking your credit card into that gas pump. Just make sure that there's no little device in there capturing that number. All right, it's hard to get caught. Okay, I always start this section by, is it worth it? So, you know, the reality is when we do this in a live presentation, I ask you guys, raise your hand if you think it's worth it to go get those son of a bitches that, you know, caused you to have to pay the ransomware, or that you had to take and actually pay someone to take and get your information back, okay? So is it worth it? 100% of you will raise your hand. Absolutely, go get that son of a bitch. Put him in jail. The problem is that you're right. Most people would agree that it's worth it. But for governments, when the attacks are coming, remember 98% or 96% of all attacks originate outside the United States. Remember that once you do that, the government has to get involved. And is it worth it for the government to get involved for your $1,200 or your $12,000 or your whatever dollars? Probably not. So you're probably on your own. You're probably going to be what's considered as a byproduct or a innocent bystander. We have a question. What do the credit card devices at gas pump look like? All right. The question was, what do credit card devices at gas pumps look like? So where you put in your credit card, if you see a little black tab, typically it's on the right-hand side. It could be on the left-hand side, but something where they can take and pop out a reading device. It is a thin piece of metal with an electronic piece that slides right into that slot. And so in order for them to be able to do that, what they do is they take and come and they either slide that back out or they get it within range and they download the data. So that has to go and be able to fit in there. So typically what I typically look for is I look to make sure there's no little tabs on the side of things that I can pull out. We've had in our area these scammers, they're called scammers, these scammers to take and actually be on gas pumps. And so people have been actually affected in our area for those things. So yeah, so I would just take and look at it a little more soundly when you go to do that, just to kind of make sure. All right, so for governments, that may not be the truth. The cost to you versus the cost to investigate versus the potential to prosecute is a mathematical formula that the government uses to determine whether they think it's viable or not. So is it worth it for them? Probably not. All right, so follow the money, or should I say follow the Bitcoin. I'm going to quickly talk about Bitcoins. Bitcoins are digital currency. So cyber criminals commit cybercrime and they request you to pay in Bitcoins or bit currency, and that is a digital currency that they are using to take and further fund themselves or their criminal activity. So I have another question. It's scary to think about someone buying TVs after they've stolen my credit card number, but since the bank will reimburse me, why would I worry constantly about it? Good question. All right, let me answer that question. So if you are, so you guys are all Mid-South, so I can answer this question. If you are using a corporate card, so let's say you are have a corporate card and that information comes from your bank account, you have 24 hours to detect and report the theft, or it's not reimbursable. Residential has 30 days. So corporations, 24 hours. How many people look at their bank statement every 24 hours to make sure there wasn't a fraudulent charge on there? So that's the biggie for why would you worry about it. The other is you may not. I mean, it may not matter to you. The thing that is going to be the biggest issue is once they have your credit card number and the zip code, then it's not a far reach to take and do additional research to do a complete identity theft. And that would take and actually cause you major headaches, because then you have to go get, a new social security number, a new driver's license, new credit cards. You have to cancel all of your credit cards and have them reissued, bank cards and everything. That's a lot of effort over, not worrying about, them buying TVs. So good question. Thanks. So BitCurrency is a digital currency that is available to cyber criminals. It makes it a lot harder for them to be caught because there's no money trail per se. Now, BitCurrency is a very popular currency. So who accepts Bitcoins? Well, Bitcoins are accepted by Wikipedia, by Microsoft, by Expedia, by KFC, Papa John's, Subway, Overstock, Playboy for you young guys, Virgin Galactica, Cheapo Air, Newegg, Amazon, not directly through the third-party pay site, AT&T, and Dish Network. So these are reputable companies that are accepting Bitcoin payments. So Bitcoin, though it is a digital currency and it is highly utilized by the actual cyber criminal community, it is a legitimate digital currency that is used by legitimate industries as well. For you guys, most likely cyber security threat your business will be exposed to include cyber fraud, including phishing, malware attacks, ransomware attacks, drive-by downloads, hacking, key logging, password decryption, or out-of-state unpatched software. Now, out-of-date and unpatched software, that also applies to your digital connection device. For example, your router at your house has a firmware in it, has a piece of software that runs it. That needs to be checked every so often for a firmware update, because cyber criminals may have figured out a way to break through that because it's software driven. So in order to take and make sure that those things are also secure, you need to make sure not only is your computer system secure, but also the devices that are utilized to take and connect to the internet as well. Impact of cybercrime on your business. I'm going to step through this fairly quickly. You have three categories that cybercrime is going to affect. It's going to affect you financially, it's going to affect you reputationally, and it's going to affect you legally. So from a financial standpoint, it's going to take and actually cost from theft of corporate information, theft of financial information, theft of money, disruption of your business, and loss of business or contracts. So those are the areas where they would affect you. Businesses that suffer a cyber breach will generally incur costs associated with repairing the affected systems, network, and device. So in May of 2017, Target paid out $18.7 million in settlement over a large-scale data breach that took place in 2013. It took 4 years to settle. The company said that the total cost of the breach was over $202 million. This again refers back to those cyber criminals that focus on the big picture, on the big money payout. So this would be a big target item. Target would be somewhere where you can get information. Equifax. That Equifax breach cost them $650 million. British Airways, $230 million. Uber, their cyber attack cost them $148 million. Marriott International, $124 million. Yahoo, $117 million. Target, $18.5 million. And Anthem Healthcare paid out $16 million. So when you talk about actual cybercrime and what it costs to you, you have to take and look at the actual total cost. So it is going to be the cost of getting your data back, the cost of being out of business. How many people here could take and actually stop their business for, a week and do nothing or have no access to their information. Wouldn't be able to get to their reports. You wouldn't be able to get to your actual quotes, your bids, or anything like that because you had no access to that information. So that when you talk about actual security, you need to make sure that you are understanding that this intrusion in your day is you walk in, flip the lights on, and you can do nothing. That is the significance of this impact. This could cost you based on out of service time and the cost to take and repair those info systems, buying new equipment, and so forth and so on. Additional hardware would be required, additional hard disk, additional computer systems, additional software. Again, if you take and wipe out all of your computer systems, do you have the licensing for all of your Adobe, for all of your Microsoft, for all of your subscription, for your Bluebeam, for your everything that you have to reload and recategorize? All of that has to be redone. So cost for 1 week is $30,000, $8,700 in IT recovery, cost of the equipment. So a minimum realized cost for $1 million company is about $38,750 for a $1 million sales company. So don't take into effect the actual reputational cost. How many of you would be impacted if you had to tell your customer, I don't know, I can't get out there today because I don't have a computer system. I don't know, I won't be able to get out there until next week because I don't know where my guys are at or whatever. So all of that is directly affected by the actual failure to take and protect your systems. So quickly run through this. How do I know this? I've experienced this with 2 companies, either directly or indirectly, in the last several years. So we had one customer who was down and they were out of commission for about 2 days. They were returned to actual work, hobbling after about 2 weeks, and took over a month to complete the actual store operation. The cost of the corporation was $250 million, but the actual cost of them was only about $25,000 because they had cyber insurance. So the cyber policy paid the remainder of the balance. All they had to do was pay the 25. Had another customer who they were out for 2 days. I mean, it's taken 2 days in order to get the information up, and then partial services restored within a week, normal operations within 2 weeks. The cost out of pocket to them, $300,000. So think about this for each one of your firms. Can you afford to take and write a check today for $300,000? Reputational. This is going to affect your reputation. You have had a breach in your security. You can't take and reach out to your customers. You cannot interact with your customers just like you're doing today. So that's going to affect your reputation with your customers. It's going to affect your sales because you can't close those quotes. It's going to take and also reduce your profits because of the money that you're going to have to put back into the business to try to recover from that. So these damages from your reputation could last for years. Legal. Here's the biggie for you guys. If you are subject to a data breach, depending on the investigation that is done on that breach, depending on the information that you currently store, will depend on who you have to notify. If you keep customer information in your systems and they pertain to financial information, then you have to let your customers know that you had a breach. So think about that letter that you're going to have to write to all of your customers to say, hey, I just want to let you know we've had a breach. It is possible that your data was compromised and so forth and so on. You don't want to have to write that letter. If something comes out and there was an accidental breach, you could be held financially responsible for that data breach. All right, so for small to medium-sized businesses, the damage caused by a single cyber attack can prove fatal. 60% of businesses fold within 6 months of falling victim to a cyber attack. 60% of businesses fold within 6 months of falling victim to a cyber attack. So don't be one of them.
Hey, Derek, I'm going to pause you for just a moment. We're running over a little bit, so
I'm done. That's why.
Perfect timing.
Yep. All right. Any questions or any comments?
So,
all right.
Derek, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that you condensed this down. So in another presentation, do you go through the steps to actually, like to protect your company? I know it's.
Yep. The next section is called cybersecurity.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. First section is really more cyber awareness. And the second one is really focuses on cybersecurity and what things you can do to take and help protect you. Yep. For sure.
Does it go into the different insurance? Because there's cyber, there's insurance that protects the first party, insurance that protects second party, and most are not aware of the differences in the insurances.
Yeah, so we talked briefly about the categories of insurance. We don't talk specifics because those really are controlled by the individual agencies, but we do talk about, there's first party insurance, there's data breach insurance, there's security insurance, and so forth and so on. Yep.
Perfect. Are there any questions for Derek? Okay.
They're just glad that I'm done.
No, it was a great presentation. Definitely interested in hearing the second half of it. And we'll be talking about when we can get that scheduled. Hold on, maybe I have a question here.
I typically, when I do this live, the very first thing that I usually tell my participants is, if you don't leave this presentation absolutely terrified, I haven't done my job. Mm-hmm. It is really that scary. I will tell you that whenever I get a call from a customer that I don't expect early in the morning, like 6 a.m. or something like that, I automatically go into panic mode because I'm like, oh God, what happened? Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. It's scary stuff. It really is. But the reality is it's like anything. If you take and protect yourself, or you put the pieces in place to be able to help protect yourself, then you can weather the storm. If you go through this willy-nilly and you just trust everything's going to be okay, then it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You will have an intrusion.
Right. For sure.
And I don't say that. I want you to take and ask us for assistance to be able to help teach you and guide you. But if you don't use us, use somebody, for sure.
Sure. Well, Derek, thank you very much.
Yes,
we appreciate you presenting this topic to us, and look forward to having you speak on the second half of it, either virtually or maybe in person whenever we all meet together.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks ladies and gentlemen. See ya.
Take care.